I was in the middle of making dinner when my phone buzzed. I'm done. I filed for divorce. Don't contact me. My hands trembled as I read the text over and over, my heart pounding in disbelief. No explanation. No warning. Just like that, my marriage of 10 years was discarded in a few cold words. Panic set in as I rushed to check our joint bank account, and that's when I felt my entire world collapse. Every single dollar was gone. My husband had cleaned out everything, leaving me with nothing. I sat on the floor, my body shaking, wondering how the man I loved could betray me so heartlessly. But what he didn't know, what he never saw coming, was that I wasn't going down without a fight. And when I struck back, it was far worse than he ever imagined. For 10 years, Lisa Carter had built a life with her husband, Mark. At 36, she believed their marriage was strong, or at least stable. Sure, there were arguments, moments of distance, but wasn't that normal? She had sacrificed so much for their relationship, leaving her high-paying job to support his career, managing their home, and putting her dreams on hold so they could plan for a future together. Their joint savings were meant to be a foundation for that future, a home upgrade, maybe a child someday. Lisa had trusted Mark completely. She never imagined that trust would be shattered in the most ruthless way possible. It started like any other evening. She was preparing dinner, expecting Mark home soon. Instead, her phone buzzed with a message that instantly turned her life upside down. I'm done. I filed for divorce. Don't contact me. Her breath caught in her throat. No conversation. No warning. Just a text. Her hands shook as she grabbed her laptop, logging into their bank account. The balance read $0. Her mind raced. How? Why? Had he been planning this? Had she missed the signs? Was she really this blind? But shock quickly turned into something else: determination. If Mark thought he could just walk away and leave her with nothing, he had no idea who he was messing with. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Lisa's hands trembled as she refreshed the bank page, hoping she had misread it. But the numbers didn't change: $0. Mark had emptied the account. The money they had saved together, her hard-earned contributions, all gone. A wave of nausea hit her. She grabbed her phone and called him. Straight to voicemail. Again. And again. Blocked. He had completely shut her out. Tears burned her eyes, but rage bubbled beneath them. She refused to break. Not like this. She wiped her face, took a deep breath, and forced herself to think. There had to be a way to fight back. She started searching through their finances, every credit card statement, every transfer. Mark wasn't exactly a mastermind, just arrogant enough to think she wouldn't fight back. And that was his biggest mistake. Then she saw it. A pattern. A series of withdrawals and transfers to an account she didn't recognize. Her mind raced. Had he been planning this for weeks? Months? Had every business trip, every late-night excuse been part of his grand escape plan? Lisa needed answers. And she knew exactly where to start. Lisa wasn't going to beg. She wasn't going to cry. She was going to strike first. She went to the one person Mark never expected her to contact: his boss. Mark had spent years bragging about how irreplaceable he was at his firm, how much they trusted him. But Lisa knew something he didn't. His company had strict ethics policies. And if there was one thing Mark had been sloppy about, it was mixing personal expenses with business accounts. She pulled out every statement she could find. Dinners, trips, client meetings that never happened. She packaged it all in a neat little file and sent it directly to his company's HR department, anonymously. The second email went to her lawyer. Lisa had been blindsided, but she wasn't alone. When she told her best friend, Mia, about what happened, Mia's expression darkened. I had a bad feeling about him, Mia muttered, shaking her head. Lisa looked at her, confused. Why didn't you ever say anything? Mia hesitated. Because you loved him. And I thought, maybe I was wrong. But she wasn't wrong. And now it was time for Mark to pay. Mia's brother was a forensic accountant, and within 2 hours, he found something Lisa hadn't even considered. Mark had another bank account. A secret one. And it wasn't just a small stash, it was their money, hidden under his name alone. Lisa felt her stomach twist. Had he been hiding money for months? Years? Now it was war. Lisa waited. She knew Mark would call her eventually, not because he felt guilty, but because men like him always think they're in control. And just as expected, his number flashed on her screen 2 days later. She answered, keeping her voice steady. Mark. A pause. Then his voice came through, calm, almost smug. I suppose you've figured it out by now. Her fingers clenched into fists, but she forced herself to stay composed. Let him think he still had the upper hand. What I don't understand, she said coldly, is why you didn't just tell me to my face. Why steal from me like a coward? Mark scoffed. I took what was mine. You'll be fine, Lisa. You always land on your feet. Her blood boiled, but she smiled. You're right. I do. She ended the call. Because what he didn't know was that his world was already starting to crumble. Lisa sat in the dim glow of her laptop screen, her pulse steady but her mind racing. She had spent the last 2 days gathering evidence, connecting the dots, and preparing her next move. Mark had stolen from her, abandoned her through a text message, and left her to pick up the pieces. But he had underestimated her. He thought she would crumble, beg, and disappear into the background. He was dead wrong. She had already taken the first steps, reporting his shady financial activities to his company and contacting her lawyer. But that wasn't enough. Mark needed to feel the same desperation and powerlessness that he had inflicted on her. And Lisa had just the plan. Lisa dug deeper into their finances, determined to leave no stone unturned. With Mia's brother's help, she traced Mark's secret bank account and uncovered something even more damning. He had funneled money into a private investment fund, hiding assets under a false pretense. Her lawyer confirmed that since they were still legally married, Mark's attempts to hide money were illegal in the eyes of the court. She had enough to take him down in divorce proceedings, but Lisa wasn't content with just winning in court. She wanted him to feel it. She froze every shared credit card they had. Mark had been so confident in his escape plan that he hadn't considered Lisa could cut off his access. Within hours, his texts started flooding in. Why are the credit cards declined? Lisa, stop this. You're making things harder than they need to be. Lisa, pick up the damn phone. She didn't reply. Let him stew in it. This was only the beginning. Lisa knew Mark. His entire identity was wrapped up in how others perceived him, his success, his confidence, his carefully crafted reputation. He prided himself on being the charming businessman, the man everyone respected. But Lisa had evidence that would shatter that image. She reached out to a mutual acquaintance who worked in Mark's office. Just a heads up, she said casually over coffee, HR is looking into his expenses. I heard they're digging deep. The news spread like wildfire. By lunchtime the next day, Lisa received a text from Mia. Girl, it's happening. People at his office are talking. Mark hadn't been fired yet, but the rumors were enough to make him squirm. Lisa could just imagine him in his office, sweating, trying to play it cool while his coworkers whispered behind his back. Then came the next hit. She exposed his cheating. She had suspected it for a while but never had proof. Until now. Digging through phone records and financial statements, Lisa found hotel receipts, dinner charges, and transfers to a woman named Rachel. And Lisa knew Rachel. She was one of Mark's younger coworkers, someone he had claimed was just a friend. Now, Lisa had the receipts, literally. She sent an anonymous tip to Mark's company, attaching photos of his personal transactions masked as business expenses. By the end of the day, Mark was called into HR. Mark stormed into their old apartment that night. He still had a key, but Lisa had changed the locks. He banged on the door, furious. Lisa, open the damn door, he yelled. She stood on the other side, arms crossed, heart steady. She didn't let him in. Instead, she texted him from inside. You don't live here anymore. He banged harder. You think this is funny? You're ruining my life, Lisa. She smirked at the irony. You did that yourself, she murmured to herself. She let him shout for a while before the building security came and escorted him out. He was unraveling, and she was just getting started. Lisa wasn't done. She filed for spousal support and a full investigation into their finances. Since Mark had stolen from their joint account and tried to hide assets, the court ruled in Lisa's favor. But the final blow came a week later. Mark lost his job. The company found enough evidence of fraudulent expense reports to justify termination with cause, meaning he wouldn't even get severance. His life was falling apart, just as he had tried to destroy hers. And Lisa? She walked out of that courtroom with a settlement that left her financially secure. Mark thought he had outsmarted her, that she would be helpless without him. He never saw her revenge coming. Lisa sat in her new apartment, the soft hum of the city outside her window a stark contrast to the chaos that had ruled her life just weeks ago. She had spent so many nights crying, questioning, feeling like a fool for trusting Mark. But now, as she stared at the legal documents in front of her, she realized something. She had won. Mark had been fired. His fraudulent expenses and shady financial dealings had caught up to him, and his company wasted no time in cutting him loose. With no severance, no safety net, and no hidden funds, thanks to Lisa's swift legal action, he was left scrambling. His secret account? Frozen. His credit? Destroyed. The man who once prided himself on being untouchable was now drowning in consequences. But Lisa wasn't done. Winning wasn't enough. She needed to face him, not for closure, not for revenge, but to show him that she was no longer the woman he thought he could control. She waited for the right moment, and it came sooner than expected. Mark called her from an unknown number. She let it ring, her heart steady. He called again. Finally, she answered. Lisa. His voice was different. Weaker. Desperate. She said nothing. She wanted him to sit in the silence, to feel the weight of what he had done. He cleared his throat. We need to talk. She smirked. Talk? You didn't feel like talking when you stole from me and left me with nothing. You didn't think I deserved a conversation then. Mark sighed. I was wrong, okay? Things got out of hand. Lisa chuckled. Got out of hand? You planned this for months, Mark. You drained our accounts. You left me with nothing. You thought I'd crawl away quietly, but instead, she leaned back in her chair. You're the one who lost everything. Mark was silent. She could hear him breathing heavily. The once cocky, arrogant man who had thought he was untouchable now had nothing left. And she loved every second of it. I don't have anywhere to go, he admitted finally. The lease was in your name. My credit's shot. I need some help. Lisa raised an eyebrow. Help? The audacity was almost laughable. You need help, she repeated, feigning surprise. Funny. I needed help too, Mark. I needed help when you emptied our account and left me stranded. I needed help when I had to rebuild my life from scratch. But you didn't care about that. I made a mistake, Lisa. I wasn't thinking straight. She let out a short laugh. Oh, you were thinking just fine. You thought I was weak. You thought I wouldn't fight back. I know I messed up, he said, his voice almost pleading now. Can we meet? Talk? Lisa took a deep breath. This was it. The moment she had been waiting for. Sure, Mark, she said. Let's meet. She chose the place carefully, a public cafe, one where she controlled the situation. When she walked in, she spotted him immediately. He looked different. His usual sharp suit was replaced by cheap, wrinkled clothes, his hair unkempt, his face drawn and tired. He looked like a man who had lost everything. Lisa took her time walking over. She wanted him to see her confidence, her strength, the woman who had risen from the ashes of his betrayal. She sat down across from him, watching as he shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He cleared his throat. Lisa, She held up a hand. No. You listen. His mouth snapped shut. You thought you could destroy me, she said, her voice calm but firm. You thought I'd be too weak to fight back. But look at you, Mark. She gestured at his disheveled appearance. You lost everything. Your job. Your money. Your mistress. And you have the nerve to ask me for help? He clenched his jaw. I know I was wrong. But Lisa, You don't have to be cruel. She laughed. Cruel? You blindsided me with a text message. You stole my money. You left me for dead. And now you're sitting here, hoping I'll throw you a lifeline. Mark's eyes darted around the cafe as if hoping no one could hear this. His hands clenched into fists on the table. What do you want from me? Lisa tilted her head. I already got what I wanted. I got my life back. I got justice. And I got to watch you fall apart. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. The best part? I didn't even have to lift a finger. You destroyed yourself. Mark swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling on him. She picked up her purse and stood. This is the last time you'll ever see me, Mark. She pulled a crisp divorce settlement document from her bag and dropped it in front of him. Sign it. And then? Stay out of my life. Mark stared at the papers, his face pale. Lisa, please. She didn't wait for him to finish. She turned on her heel and walked away, her heart light, her future bright. Mark had tried to bury her. He never expected her to rise stronger than ever. Mark sat frozen in his chair, staring at the divorce settlement Lisa had just placed in front of him. His hands trembled as he reached for the papers, his face drained of the arrogance that once defined him. He had lost control of his money, his reputation, his job, and now he was losing Lisa for good. But Lisa didn't care about his regret. She wasn't here for his apology. She was here to end this. She walked away from the cafe without looking back, leaving Mark alone in his misery. With every step she took, she felt lighter, stronger, freer. For months, he had made her feel weak, discarded, powerless. But now, she had all the power. Lisa didn't wait to see if he would sign the papers. She didn't need his cooperation. Her lawyer had already built a case strong enough to ensure that Mark had no choice but to comply. His financial records, his fraudulent activities, and his failed attempts to hide assets had all been documented. If he tried to fight it, he'd only dig himself into a deeper legal mess. Either way, she was getting what she deserved. Days after their last meeting, Lisa got a call from her lawyer. Mark had officially signed the divorce settlement. He had no choice. His options were gone, his money drained, and his reputation shattered. But the real victory came a week later when news of his termination became public. The firm had quietly tried to keep things under wraps, but rumors spread fast. Clients started pulling out, and soon enough, Mark's name was blacklisted in the industry. He was officially untouchable in the corporate world. And then came the biggest blow of all. His landlord evicted him. With no job and no savings, Mark couldn't afford rent, and with his credit in ruins, finding another place was nearly impossible. The man who had once stolen everything from Lisa now had nothing to his name. Lisa, on the other hand, was thriving. With her share of the settlement secured, Lisa moved forward with her life. She landed a high-paying job that she actually loved, one that gave her both financial freedom and personal fulfillment. For the first time in years, she wasn't living under Mark's shadow. She was standing on her own. She also found her way back to the passions she had abandoned for Mark's dreams. She started her own business, something she had always wanted but never pursued because she had spent so much time supporting his ambitions. Now, she was building something for herself. And then there was love. Lisa wasn't looking for revenge anymore. She wasn't looking for validation. But she was open to happiness. And as life would have it, it found her. A man who truly valued her. A man who treated her like a partner, not a convenience. One evening, as she walked along the city streets, hand in hand with someone who actually cared, her phone buzzed. She glanced down, expecting a message from a friend. But instead, it was from Mark. She stared at the screen for a moment. Mark, Lisa. I don't know where to go. Can we talk? She let out a soft laugh, shaking her head. The irony. The man who had once discarded her without a second thought was now the one begging for her time. But she owed him nothing. With a deep breath, she blocked his number, just as he had once blocked hers. And just like that, Mark was erased from her life completely. As she slipped her phone back into her pocket, she looked up at the man beside her, the warmth of his hand in hers a reminder of how far she had come. She had survived. She had won. And most importantly, she was finally free. Lisa sat on her balcony, watching the sun set over the city. The same city where she had once felt abandoned, broken, and lost, but not anymore. She had rebuilt her life from the ground up, and for the first time in years, she felt at peace. Mark had tried to destroy her, thinking she would crumble under the weight of his betrayal. He thought he had outsmarted her, that she would suffer in silence while he walked away with everything. But instead, he was the one who lost it all. His money, his reputation, his power gone. But Lisa's greatest victory wasn't in watching him fall. It was in rising above it. She had fought for her future, reclaimed her independence, and refused to let one man's cruelty define her. As she sipped her wine, her phone vibrated. A message from her new love, asking if she was free for dinner. She smiled. This was what moving on looked like. They say revenge is sweet, but nothing tastes better than finally being free.